Happy Friday, everybody. This is Mary Hughes, founder of Close the Gap California, and I'm delighted that you could join us this afternoon. We're here to talk about how to work a convention to advance your candidacy. And we're specifically talking about this with regard to the California Democratic Party's upcoming convention from May 31st to June 2nd in San Francisco. This is an excellent opportunity to explore a candidacy, to help you make a decision about running, or to advance your candidacy. And happily, our experts today are really up on this topic and have a lot of great things to share with you. In the spirit of convention, we want you to have a good time this hour. You can ask questions, write your questions in, and we'll get to them at about 12:40. And we'd also like to say that we have a lot going on at this convention. And to tell you about it, I want to introduce our Executive Director, Susanna Delano.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, we're excited to release our convention guide that Karen Weinstein and Janet Cook put together for us. That's live on our website now. If you visit closethegapca.org, the pop-up will have a link to it, and also under our webinar section, you can find that guide. You'll receive a link after the webinar as well. So conventions are a great opportunity to network, and we hope that includes networking between you all and us. There's going to be a number of chances to meet in person at conventions, so I just wanted to let you know what those are just briefly. The first one is that we'll be co-hosting with our sister organizations Emerge California and Fund Her a hospitality suite party on Friday night, the 31st. It will be at the Moscone Center on site from 10:15 to midnight, and it will be on the official convention schedule. The second event is that we will have a booth going in the exhibit hall at Moscone Center for the entirety of the convention. Please drop by and see us, send friends or people with goals and values in common with us by. Every new connection we make really helps bolster our campaign to recruit progressive women to run for the California State Legislature up to and until we reach 50% women. We'll have an advice booth with a published schedule of times to concentrate on specific areas of launching a campaign. And we'll have swag and friendly faces, so please come by and see us. And then finally, on Sunday, we invite you to wrap up the convention with us in the East Bay, especially if you're heading back out to the eastern part of the state. Stop by from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Trax Gallery in Berkeley. We'll be joined by former legislators Dion Ehrener and Lonnie Hancock, and we are just so pleased to have an honorary host in Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We'll debrief the convention and make a plan for the next phase of sustaining this wave of electing women into office. There's no charge to attend, and you can find information about all of these events on our website. Visit us on social media, please, at Close the Gap CA on all those platforms, and sign up for our email list in order to get alerts. Thanks so much.
So if you thought there might be a lot going on at the convention, this is just what Close the Gap is doing. There are lots of our allies who are offering briefings and receptions and parties, and part of the point of visiting with you today is to help you pick and choose what is going to advance your candidacy and help you reach your goal, because there's a lot to distract you and it's fun, but we want you to stay purposeful the whole 3 days. So I want to talk just for a second before we introduce our experts about why this is important. You know, it isn't very often that you get to visit with all of the people who can make or break a candidacy. But in one spot for 72 hours at the end of May, you will have delegates who can vote on your endorsement, elected officials who can lend you their names for support, donors who can fill your coffers, executive directors and PAC directors who want to both school you on their topics, whether it's environment or education or the economy, whatever is important to the people in the district you're living and running in, those are the people you want to seek out. This is a target-rich environment. You will find lots of information and lots of helpful people. Consultants, volunteers, veteran campaign staff, legislative staff with subject matter expertise. They're all in the building, all at the same time, and it makes for a lot of hard choices. It gives you the opportunity to lay the groundwork for an endorsement. And our experts are two women who have done excellent work in this regard, and they will talk to you more about it. Also, time to meet people and to begin to build relationships, people you can go back to for advice and guidance. You also have an opportunity to pitch you, hone your message. If you're bold and you want to stand up in front of a caucus and say, I'm thinking about running because I care deeply about campaign finance reform, then you can get up and do that. If you get in an elevator with the lieutenant governor, you introduce yourself and say, I want to be in that legislature to work with you because I know how much you care about higher education. So this is a huge opportunity, and we want you to make the most of it. Before I introduce our experts, just one more thing. This is an exhausting 72 hours. You want to wear flat shoes with rubber soles because you're going to get your 10,000 steps in, and you're going to feel it, but you want to stay energetic. You want to have a business card, even if you're not in business, go make something at the corner store, but something that gives people the opportunity to email and phone you after the convention. Please bring a small pad and paper, the kind you stick in your backpack, because you're going to want to take notes. There's tons of paper on your chair, handing out. When you walk into rooms, people hand flyers right into your hand. Save it and read it. Even if you don't read it till you go home, it will remind you of things that were important. So just take it and save it. Finally, move quickly and stay flexible. Some of your best conversations, some of the most important introductions will happen in the hallways. So just remember that every meeting is an opportunity. And the only way you can actually build that relationship and make the most of the opportunity is if you remember who you met and you know how to find them afterwards. So those are just a few starters on the practical side. We're going to talk today about goals, plans, and preparation, building relationships, forging alliances. And as I said, we have extraordinary experts with us to tell us how we're going to get that done. Melanie Ramil, welcome. We are so pleased to have you from one of our favorite allies. Melanie is the new executive director of Emerge California, and we couldn't be more pleased to have her as a colleague in this effort to get more women into office in California. She has over 13 years of political and government experience with progressive candidates, initiatives, and public policy. I think if I remember correctly, she's not only won endorsements for candidates, but also for ballot measures. So she really knows this convention. She has worked with Senator Harris, a very successful effort for an endorsement and obviously for election to the Senate, and with former Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones, who also ran an extremely vigorous campaign. Welcome. We're pleased to have you, Melanie. And with Melanie today is an old friend to close the gap, and to many women elected officials and women leaders in California. Elmi Bermejo, one of the founders of HOPE, Hispanos Organized for Political Equality, now a California Democratic Party delegate, a member of Emily's List Latina Advisory Council. I know Elmi well as one of the right hands to Senator John Burton, also a party chair. She has most recently been a senior advisor to our new Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Kounalakis, and guided Eleni through her first and most important convention ever. Ladies, thank you so much. We're delighted to have you today. And I'm going to turn it over now to Melanie, who's going to talk to you a little bit about how to think about this convention, plan for it, and prepare for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. I'm so happy to be part of this webinar today. I have to share that party convention has been some of my favorite political and personal memories of my life. I've had so much fun at convention, and I just can't wait to share what I've done at convention with all of you. So I'm going to talk about and focus on goals, plan, and preparation. And just to share a little bit of background, I'm super happy to share that I'm 3 of 3 in my party convention campaigns. In 2010, I was part of Dave Jones' team to win him the endorsement for State Insurance Commissioner. as a candidate at the statewide level, you need to win 60% of the delegate vote to win endorsement, and we won that endorsement in 2010 by 16 votes. So when we say every vote counts, every vote counts. In 2014, I also worked the state party for Proposition 45, which was our health rate regulation initiative. That one was a little bit different. We won the party endorsement at the executive board meeting. The executive board is made up of the party leadership, which is about 10% of the entire delegation. And so what we did, though, to win that party endorsement at executive board meeting was we worked all 3,200 delegates. We received endorsements from 55 of the 58 county central committees and made sure that the executive board knew that the grassroots of the party were in support of this initiative. And lastly, and I'll have to say maybe one of my favorite memories was in 2016 in helping Kamala Harris win party endorsement as she was a candidate for a United States Senate. And I'll share a little bit more with you about that as we go through the next slides. So resources, if this is your first convention, welcome. I'm very excited for you for in a few weeks to experience it. There are a ton of resources besides webinars like this. Reach out to party officials such as your regional county committee chair or the regional director in your area or fellow delegates who may be friends. Also allies, Emerge California, Emily's List, and Planned Parenthood. All of us have been at convention many times, so if you know folks in those circles, reach out to also get a sense from them what convention is like and what you should be doing there. All right, so goal setting, what is this all about? And I have to share with you all that I am a nerd about organizing at convention. I have so much fun organizing at convention and figuring out how to meet people, how to meet my goals for my candidate or my boss, my elected official. And so happy to share some of that with you all today. So first, why even set a goal? Why are we doing this webinar? Why is it important to talk about convention and prepare for it? Because simply, you can't do it all. It is 2.5 days of a lot of events and meetings taking place at the same time with thousands and thousands of people, and you're not going to be able to meet them all. So if you set goals before you get to convention, you have a better chance of meeting them, because try as you might, I don't think any of us will be able to ever get around to meet all 3,200 delegates of the state party. And how to set a goal. So what does that even mean? What hats are you wearing? What goals should you be setting? And so I'll just share a few hats that I know that folks have going into convention. You could simply be a first timer interested in democratic politics in the party. So maybe you're there to learn. Or you're there as a delegate or even a first time delegate. You were part of those ADEM elections. You're a delegate for the first time and you're going. Or you may be volunteering on a campaign. I know there's a lot of folks out there on different campaigns on the chair's race for the party, so you may be going there to support one of them. You may be representing your organization. I know a number of folks are coming out to support Emerge California at our booth. Or you're staffing an elected official. Many conventions, I served as staff to Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones. You may be doing that. But why are we here today? Hopefully you are currently a candidate or you're planning to run soon, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So once you know your goal, how to develop your plan. What do you do? Where should you be? What should you attend? And what process may you be competing in maybe next year or the year after to win endorsement? So my recommendation is to have 2 to 3 specific goals in mind, and those goals should be what are most useful to your candidacy or future candidacy. As Mary said, it's a target-rich environment. There are so many folks there and so many great folks to meet. So networking, of course, can naturally be one of your goals, networking and meeting as many people as possible. But if that's your goal, I think I would recommend to narrow that goal down. Who should you meet? Not just meet. I got to meet 100 people, but If you're running for local office, make sure to meet your fellow delegates and Democratic activists from your region. So I'll give you some examples of how to do that. In your region, there are delegates, there are Democratic activists, there are local party leaders. For example, I live in Sacramento, and there is a county chair for the Sacramento County Central Committee. And if I'm planning to run for a local office, I should find Terry Shuntz at convention and see if I can exchange business cards with him. And I may even email him before we get to convention to introduce myself and set up a coffee. There's also local labor leaders on site, donors to candidates and to the party as a whole. So find those places where you can meet folks from your region. This may be on the floor during general session. On the floor, you'll see as you walk in, and it's super exciting, and there's a lot of people and energy. Delegates do sit by their region, so sit in the area of your region. Everyone around you will be from your area. There will be regional director elections at this convention, so make sure to go, because there will be folks from your area voting in those places. And if you can, try to attend your local Dem Club meeting before you go, or get on their email list, because while there's an official convention schedule, there's a lot of stuff happening outside of convention. There's meetups and happy hours. For example, there's different counties meeting for lunch on Saturday, where you can have lunch with the fellow folks from your area. Another goal may be introducing yourself as a candidate. So you're a candidate, or you're going to be a candidate, and you want people to know that. So what are some goals? You could have folks sign up for your email list. So be prepared for that. Have a piece of paper or little index cards where folks can write down their names and email addresses, or you may even speak at a caucus meeting. So what does that mean? Look at the convention schedule. You'll see that there's a number of times starting Friday evening through Saturday where caucuses come together. Do you want to introduce yourself at the Women's Caucus, at the Progressive Caucus? Is your focus on environmental issues? Then I would definitely recommend going to the Environmental Caucus and introducing yourself. Maybe you don't do that in front of the room just yet, but you can go around, meet all of the leaders of that caucus, such as the caucus chair and the board, or other folks there in the room that are active and passionate about your same issue. Or is it presence? Are you a candidate right now and you didn't make sure that people know you have a campaign going on and they need to know your name? So what does presence mean? I love presence at convention, and I've done this so many times. I think you'll see on the picture in front of you, shirts. Everyone loves convention shirts. And so at this upcoming convention, I know we'll see a lot of shirts, different campaigns going on, a lot of different color shirts. I'd love to share that my aunt, Gloria Omania, worked for Tom Torlakson for a long time, and it was her idea to bring a neon lime shirt. No one on her team wanted to wear the neon lime green Tom Torlakson t-shirt, but you know what? They did, and they had a presence at convention. So think of that. How will people notice you in this crowd of thousands and thousands of delegates? So do you have a booth there? Do you have shirts? Do you have stickers? Do you have any of these other pieces? There's also opportunities through the party to put items in the bags, in the swag bags that all the delegates get. It does cost money, but it is a way for every delegate to start to see your name. I'll give some examples. When I ran Kamala Harris's endorsement strategy, I presented to her a 10-point strategy and shared with her, Attorney General, we're going to make sure that we have presence in every single space taking place throughout the convention schedule. So we had her go to every single caucus meeting and speak. We had a group of volunteers following her, wearing t-shirts, holding up signs while she spoke. We had a booth, and we had a ground team that was set up strategically throughout convention that wherever a delegate went, you were running into one of my volunteers wearing a shirt. We put a sticker on you, and we had you sign a note that said you are supporting and will be voting for Kamala Harris the next day during the endorsement vote. Or are you getting to the point, and maybe this is next year or the year after, where you have a signature event? For many years, I did desserts with Dave Jones. Everyone loves the alliteration, right? So Friday night or Saturday night, we had desserts with Dave Jones. Folks would come. That's the place where you didn't come grab your drink, you grab your dessert first, and then you go on to one of the other hospitality suites. But it was a great way to start market, and every single year, folks knew that they were going to come to desserts with Dave Jones. And with Kamala, we did the same thing. She loves cookies, so we had cookies with Kamala, and that became a signature event for her, where she does cookies with Kamala in different spaces now. If you do have one of those events, make sure to drive folks to your events. We had a limited number of t-shirts on Friday evening, the weekend where we worked Kamala's vote. And we were wearing them and telling delegates, if you show up to Cookies with Kamala tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, first 200 people get a t-shirt. You know what? That room was packed, and we gave out those t-shirts. Later that day during general session, everyone was wearing Kamala Harris t-shirts. So think about presence. Think about how folks are going to get to know your name. And I'll just share one more quick anecdote. Some of these things are expensive, I recognize that, and as candidates, make sure to watch your budget. Dave Jones, my former boss, was really great at that. One convention where I was collecting signatures for an initiative, we didn't have a booth. Please don't tell the party this. We didn't have a booth, but I stood under the escalator, and I wore all purple all weekend, and all of our materials were purple, and every caucus he went to, he said, go see my staff under the escalator. And it became a convention joke of finding Melanie underneath the escalator, but it worked. So preparation, we have 2 weeks until this exciting convention in San Francisco. So what does your preparation look like? Well, the preparation is going to be based on your goal. Again, are you there to learn? Are you there to meet certain people? Are you a candidate? Are you there to have a big presence at convention? If you're there to learn, before you get there, learn the party structure, learn the convention schedule. If you're there to meet certain folks, set up appointments prior to convention. If you go to the party if you go to the party website and you look at the party leadership, every single one of the county chairs, every single one of the caucus chairs has their email address on the website, and you can email them. One thing that I did for Dave Jones every single year, he wanted to speak at every caucus. So what I did was before convention, I emailed every single one of those caucus chairs and asked, Dave Jones would love to speak at your caucus. Can he speak? What time can he speak? What is your speaking process? If you're planning to speak at a caucus, it's great to know how that caucus operates their meeting. Every caucus runs differently. Some caucuses have all of the candidates line up against the wall, and they have 30 seconds and they go down the line. Go, 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 go. Some try to hold a meeting, a real general meeting, and then they'll have candidates popping in and out, and they'll interrupt their own general meeting to have candidates speak. So it's really great to know how that caucus operates. And if you can, have a few great volunteers or your friends with you. They could be your staffers. What I used to do when Dave Jones entered a room, I would walk up and scrunch my body as low as possible as not to interrupt the meeting, but I'd walk up way up to the table, hand them my card and Dave Jones' card, and asked, can Dave Jones speak now? And so to have support like that with you while you're a candidate is also really helpful. Remember, as you're making materials and you are handing out materials because you want that presence, make sure you go through a union printer and a union to make sure that the union bug is on all your materials. That is very important at convention. And finally, look at the schedule, but also understand what other events may be happening, again, with your region. And realize that you need to make your own schedule. It's a choose your own adventure time because you're not going to be able to get everything done. You're going to base your schedule based on your goals. And these are just a few pictures of how you introduce yourself. Again, we had a booth, a Dave Jones booth. We wanted to show how grassroots we were. So we had pictures of all of our volunteers up, and folks loved coming by and saying, hey, that's me. Or delegates came by and said, oh, Alex called me 100 times before convention. That's what he looks like. So I know there's a lot of delegate outreach beforehand. And if you're doing that because you're a candidate and they pretend to be getting a little bit frustrated, they will give you the biggest compliment at convention and say, oh my goodness, Melanie, your team emailed me, they called me, they sent me a mailer, they sent me a message on Facebook, they text me. You all are killing it. So if you are trying to get support from the delegates, no amount of communication is too much. The delegates are there because they're active and interested in democratic politics and they want to hear from you. And to the right is also an example of a mailer we sent out when I worked for Kamala's endorsement. And finally, some pieces. When Kamala won, these are some things you may have seen if you do win the party endorsement. We had press the very next day, LA Times. Kamala Harris wins the party endorsement at 78%. And to the right, if you're an endorsed candidate of the party, you get on those party mailers. And not only do you get your name next to, we all miss President Obama, but if you get your name next to on the party mailer, you're seen as an endorsed candidate of the party, and those mailers are sent around in your region, no charge to your campaign.
Thank you, Melanie. For those of you who are anxiously looking up while you're listening how you can get your neon t-shirts made in 2 weeks, I want to alleviate your anxiety. There are oddly two Democratic conventions this year. So consider this convention your learning and getting up to speed convention. This is not an endorsing convention. It is an electing convention for our state chair. We will meet again in convention in November. So those of you who are about to announce your candidacies or have announced your candidacies, that is the convention at which you will seek endorsement. And you'll have an opportunity to be pre-endorsed in your own regions and then brought to the convention, and there are lots of rules you'll know by then about that. But I just want to make clear that you are lucky because we rarely have an opportunity to learn so much at one convention and then go put it into practice so quickly at a second convention. So consider this your dress rehearsal, but it's very important. So keep taking those notes. Tell me, we have heard a lot about what we can do and how to figure out to choose between the many things we can do. Why does it matter that we spend time with new people, make new friends? Talk to us about relationship building.
Well, first of all, Mary, thank you very much for having me as part of this amazing webinar with Melanie, who I think you've given Melanie a great intro into the nuts and bolts of, what is your plan? How do you become focused? And why is all this important? And I think when you decide to run for office, or if you're contemplating running for office, as Mary just said, it's a great thing to go and observe, kind of be that anthropologist Margaret Mead, who are the players? What's going on? What do I need to do? What do I need to focus on? How do I prioritize all this, as Melanie just said? So this, as Mary just said again, is a great opportunity to do that. And in November, the endorsing convention. I'm going to provide a little bit of information on sort of on the ground and what we did, and specifically what I did for now Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis to become our first woman ever elected as Lieutenant Governor of our great state. And the relationships do matter. When we started the campaign, Eleni, first of all, is a former U.S. ambassador appointed by President Obama to be ambassador of Hungary. So she was gone for a long time out of California, and maybe the grassroots relationships weren't there when she made the decision to run. And that makes it more challenging because it's not just knowing one or key important people. The people at the grassroots level are the backbone of getting people elected. And those people are very important. They do amazing work in their communities. And it's really an investment, important investment of your time to get to know who these folks are. Now, you may not be running statewide, but in Eleni's case, she was running statewide. And this map, first of all, shows our beautiful state. And when we started, we really didn't know a lot of the party structure, the Democratic county committees. But by the end, election day, Eleni won in 53 of our 58 counties. Now, how did that happen? That was no accident. We decided that we were going to go, and Eleni was very clear about this. She was going to go to every single county of our state. And there were people who said, oh, why are you going up to Del Norte? You know, there's more cows than people. But if you make a commitment that you are going to go somewhere, it doesn't matter if there's only 1 or 2 Democrats. We were going to go meet them because they were just as important as the people who were in LA County to us, because that was 1 more vote. And at the end of the day, every vote is really important. And it was very important to Eleni. So I, as we said earlier, I had the great fortune to work for John Burton, who was party chair and was president pro tem of the Senate. And he has so many relationships. Now I worked for him for almost 9 years, or a little over 9 years. So I got to know a lot of folks as a result of working for him. A person who was very committed to the critical issues facing working Californians and working families. So when I started, first of all, John endorsed Eleni right off the bat. That was a tremendous endorsement because they've known each other. Eleni's first job was at the California Democratic Party, but when you're gone, you don't have those people that you can call. So when she came back as ambassador, we started at the very beginning. But I could call people and say, hey, this is Eleni. Remember me? I work for John Burton and I'm helping my friend Eleni Kounalakis. And people would at least listen to me. And then we would organize meetings with figured out where the county committees were having their monthly meeting, and call the chair and say, can we get on your calendar? We happen to be in Humboldt County for their meeting, and we would figure out how to make the most of our time there. And if there wasn't a meeting, we would say, can we get 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 10 people, 20 people would be great. But we would talk to as many small groups or big groups as we could, because we wanted to introduce Eleni. She personally wanted to talk to all these folks about why she was running. And slowly, we also were very conscious that, for instance, rural communities are really underrepresented. We focused there. We focused on the leadership in the rural communities and went to Madera County. We were in Fresno, to the point where the chair of the Madera County Committee would say, well, she's been here several times. And when you get that kind of level of endorsement from that local person, it's like, yeah, she's not a drive-by person. She's investing time. She wants to hear what we have to say. So those are really the relationships that matter as you're moving forward. Maybe if you're in local office, as Melanie said, find out who the regional people are. They have regular meetings, maybe quarterly meetings. I mean, my county regional person is Henny Kelly. I get emails from her, and you can go and learn, and she's a great teacher. People want people to come into the fold and understand the process. And no question is too unimportant for people to explain to you what you need to do. So those relationships matter, and also following up, not just you show up at the meeting, you know, give them feedback. You have a question, make sure you're also building that relationship, and that they know that they want to help you. They really want to help, especially women get elected and people want to be helpful, but you have to make sure that you are following up, that you understand that the relationship is important. And also, as you go to the regional or the executive meetings of the Democratic Party, you'll meet some great people. The county chairs are there. So it's an opportunity to find out where they're going to be. Get the list of the meetings that are going to be taking place. If you're an environmentalist, there's an environmental caucus. If you're in Madera County and you're running for county supervisor, you might want to get to know Susan Rowe, who is in Madera County, a little bit better. Find out who the chair is of the rural caucus and reach out to that person, and find out if your women are a key voting bloc. Find out about the women leaders, show up at the women's caucus and get to know people and join those caucuses, because it's only $10 or $20 to join for a year, and you get newsletters, you get to know what's going on, but it also lets people know that you're investing something in them. Not a lot of money, because not all of us have a lot of money to start joining everything, but a place to start where you feel you can also build a community with the state delegates, the regional directors, and key Democratic Party folks, and let them know that you are either running, you're intending to run. Because one of the critical things that I saw is that a lot of times, if we don't step up and say, I really want to run for that, there's probably some 10 people, usually men, who are saying, I'm going to run for that. And then they're already putting the pieces together. quietly because they know the party structure. So we need to get out there, find out the party structure, let people know, because once you let it out, it starts to become a reality. And then you can't really take that back. So you have to go forward. But it's very critical that you would start understanding who the folks are and build those really critical relationships. And sometimes there'll be so many new people that you'll start to build your own little army of people when you really decide to run, and they need to show up and accompany you to some of these caucus meetings so that they can, as Melanie said, put your name on that list and find out when you can speak. And don't be discouraged. Sometimes, you know, if the governor walks in and the lieutenant governor or the head of the Senate walks into a caucus, usually they get preferential treatment. So I remember on the road with Eleni, we'd put our name, I'd make friends with the person who kept the list. That was the most important person to me at that caucus meeting. And I would go there very early before the meeting started. And then I would check back. I made a pest of myself, but it was, you know, this is important to us. And we know there are elected people who are going to be coming by, but we also need to hear from women in particular, candidates who are running, and they need to be introduced or to introduce themselves to the local party people. And again, it's always approach with respect, goodwill, and an inquiring mind. You know, here is a video that is basically a very basic video on how to work a convention, what it means, how delegates are elected. It's about 10 minutes. It's really worth your time to take a look at. I saw it and I thought this is very useful. You could always learn something new. And it tells you how to be a delegate. You have to be elected. Can somebody appoint you? How many people are there? What is the party structure? And it's worth looking at that video before you go to the convention. As I said, it's only about 10 minutes. And then attend one of the county committee meetings, because you'll get to know these folks and get to know the issues. What is resonating? You know, is it offshore oil drilling? Is this the hot topic? Find out who's the leader in that. Get to know. If you don't know, it's okay. This is the opportunity to learn, to ask questions, and then to identify folks who can introduce you to people who probably know more about that, who probably know people in your area, who might say, do you know Joe Schmo or Joanne Schmo in your community? Here's their number. Reach out to them and then follow up, because there's no, people will be discouraged from assisting you if they provide guidance, they provide a good contact, and you don't follow up, because then they feel that they're wasting their time, or maybe you're not very serious about your intentions. So when you ask for advice, make sure that you are taking that advice, because people really are willing to help. Now, as I said, there are veteran convention goers, which can help you prioritize what is important. And you'll start to develop that within yourself to say, oh, I need to focus on the rural caucus or the women's caucus or the labor caucus, because labor is going to be a key role. And I need to know the party, the chair of the caucus, the members of the caucus, is anybody from my county that I can connect with as well. And then there's other things that you can attend aside from the hospitality suites. There's a lunch or a dinner with very important speakers. And sometimes that is, there's a cost to the lunch or dinner. So you need to make a decision if you have the budget for that, if there's a benefactor out there who is willing to invite you to their table. And if not, don't be discouraged either, because find a few people that you've just met, have coffee, go to lunch with them, because you're building that community of folks who are going to help you. And then there are workshops for new delegates, briefing on operations. There's a lot of great information, and you meet people, identify somebody that you think is like-minded from your area that is going to accompany you to these caucuses. Or maybe you divide and conquer. One person goes here, you go there, and you check in with each other to see where you need to be or what you know. What kind of intel do they have about what's happening in these caucuses? Is the line very long? Are speakers not starting? Are they doing their business meeting first? Then maybe you don't have to get there until later to hear the speakers. Make sure that you make introductions, provide background about yourself. Sometimes we forget to introduce yourself. Sometimes I'll speak and I forget to say who I am. And that's because we feel like we have so much information to take in, but make sure you let them know what you're running for, or what your intentions are, what your background is, why people would want to help you. And let that convention floor work for you and with you. Here are some photos of some previous conventions with Senator Holly Mitchell. We served on the Commission on the Status of Women, and now she's on the Senate. So those are key relationships. We continue to work on things. And Eleni had you heard Melanie talk about some of the events that you might have, like the ice cream reception or a cookie and coffees or something like that. Eleni did something that was, women who dare to run. Oh, let me go back, sorry. There. So there was an event, Women Who Dare to Run, with Fiona, with Betty Yee, with Malia Cohen. And these are the women who were like, really, we're going to bond together. We're going to do this together, pull our resources together, and invite all our supporters. So it was a great way for people who had not met Eleni to meet her and to meet all these amazing women candidates, or for people to just connect and for her to say thank you. When I was in, Eureka, you said hello to me and you opened your home for a meet and greet. So wonderful ways to just meet people, meetups, you learn a lot. And at the end, what I really liked about that Women Who Dare to Run is it wasn't just the women running for statewide office. Eleni invited every single woman who was running for city council, for school board, for supervisor to be on stage. Because at the end of the day, everybody, we're all in this together, and we want to make sure that we're helping one another as we go through this process of running for office. Post-convention follow-up is, as we said, gather business cards, ask people for coffee, or how can you follow up? Is there an event that you might both be at? Send them a thank you note, whether it's in a note or via email, and then figure out if there's a central committee debrief meeting. There usually is one. Attend that, because you connect with people, it's still fresh in people's minds, and you solidify that you are a serious person and that you are somebody to be taken seriously. Not only that, but that you value the relationships that you're making, and that you continue to express your intent to the party leaders, so that when somebody says, oh, I heard somebody's running for city council and you're also running, they can say, yes, and did you know that Mary Jones is running, or something like that, so that you are at the forefront of people's minds when candidates are mentioned, that you are also included in that. And thank you for that.
Elmi, thank you. That was terrific, both of you. That's a lot of questions. If you're sending your questions in from the audience now, thank you. I just want to make one point and then ask you both a question. I guess the point I would like to make is that an underutilized resource of the convention is the exhibit hall. And at Moscone, at the end of the month, the exhibit hall will be on a different floor from the general session. So you're going to have to seek it out. But let me tell you why that is an important, both in terms of meeting your goal and in terms of making relationships. The people who care most about the issues in our party are represented there in their organizational booth. So if you are a Green New Deal person, or you are a campaign finance reform person, or the issue in your district race for state senate is going to be about water, though almost all of the issue-based organizations related to campaigns and elections will have a booth there. And you can go there and meet an advocate, leave a card, and begin a relationship where expertise and volunteers would be at the end of that road. So do not forget to go to the exhibit hall. And while you're there, Emerge and Close the Gap California share a booth. And we have people in those booths who, if you are lost, confused, I'm thinking about running, but I don't know what to do, there will be people in those booths who will say, how about this? Or have you been here? Or we have some people who are attending this, and they'll walk you over. So don't be lost, don't be confused. All right, ladies, you've given us a lot of great information. So I want to ask you both. You both referenced the fact that you have been very successful getting Democratic Party delegates to do what you want. How have you communicated with delegates?
Great. Thanks so much, Mary. This is Melanie again. I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but we really, during Kamala Harris's endorsement campaign, we used every single communication tool in the tool bag to communicate with delegates. The first thing I would say is understand the delegate population. There's 3,200 delegates, but they're not all one and the same. The video that Elmi mentioned, I 100% encourage you to watch it. If you volunteered for me on Kamala Harris's endorsement campaign, that was part of your training. Because what that helped me do was explain to you who we're calling and why our message was the way it was. There's appointed delegates of elected officials. So if I knew that Dave Jones had endorsed Kamala Harris, I can call all of Dave Jones' delegates and say, I know you're an appointed delegate of Dave Jones and he's endorsing Kamala Harris. Just wanted to make sure you are too and we can count on your vote. And then there's elected delegates. They got elected on their own at those ADEM elections, and so they weren't appointed by anybody, and we need to make sure we can count on their vote. And what we did was make sure to listen to them. As a population as small as 3,200 people, you can take a lot of notes and be very meticulous about those delegates. So I understood every single issue that all of our undecided voters at the time was important to them. Weeks before convention, I broke it down to Kamala's policy director and said, I have this many delegates who care about environmental issues, this many delegates who care about criminal justice issues. And he wrote up a specific email to every single one of those delegates addressing the issue that they cared about. So we took very meticulous notes. And then finally, I'll just say, as far as reaching out to delegates, we made sure to reach out to them through every single means. Like I said, we had a text phone bank, we used Facebook Messenger, we went out to every single place that they'd be to talk to them.
I echo exactly what you just said, Melanie, because the text messaging, the calls, the Facebook messages, but also for us with Eleni, and Senator Kamala Harris endorsed Eleni early on. So we could also call delegates and who might not have known Eleni. And even on the road, we had printed cards that said, this is who Eleni is, and she's endorsed by Senator Kamala Harris. And a lot of people would look at that and say, oh, I think I'll listen now. I want to hear more about Eleni. So those are very important ways to connect. The other thing is that we had a supervisor in Nevada County, Heidi Hall, who would also hear things and say, hey, I'm hearing this conversation. This is an issue that's going to come back. So she would also be someone that was out there in her county, but could tell us what were some emerging issues that we needed to know about. And she knew the key players, so she could say, let me get more information. And we worked very well with her. So, but again, it's that relationship that you build with people that can also be helpful as you're moving down the road to your election.
That's a great point, Elmi. One thing that we did too is make sure we understood who were those leaders out there that had communities that followed them, and who were influencers out there. So we had Kamala focus on calls to the party leadership. So she called the party chair, the regional directors, all the county chairs, and all the caucus chairs. And once those folks came on board, we made sure to work with them so that they could tell all of the folks in their communities and their caucuses that they were supporting Kamala.
So I think one of the things that I would ask both of you to respond to is most of our, at Close the Gap, most of our constituents, if you will, are women who we have approached because they are talented and accomplished and share our progressive values, and we'd like to see them run at some point in the future. And you both have worked on statewide races where you, Melanie, and you, Elmi, would feel comfortable as a staff person or a senior advisor calling the delegate on behalf of your candidate. But I think it's important for both of you to think back to when you weren't so prominent and so senior advisors, and just what advice would you give folks who are first timers? They're running for the assembly. They might have been elected to a county commission, but they might be a school board member, and they're going to make that transition from nonpartisan office to partisan office. And for the first time, pick up the phone and call a delegate to this convention. What's that conversation like for you, Elmi?
Well, I think making sure if it's you're reaching people from your local community, so in your town or your county, and I think it's you want people who are going to connect with you on a very personal level, and you want to keep it short. You want to get to the point. One of the things I learned from John Burton is you better get your message out in 45 seconds if you want something. Otherwise, people lost interest. and they walk away. So you need to say, you know, my name is Elmi and I'm running for city council. Can I tell you about that? And I want to hear what you're doing in your community. So people do also feel that you really want to get to know them. It's not just you're talking for 20 minutes and then you don't know who they are, maybe your opponent, but you want to really put, and I think people appreciate when you're putting yourself out there. They go, wow, this person's running for city council and asked me and made the phone call, invested the time. I think there's an appreciation for good old-fashioned retail politics, the good old-fashioned shoe leather where it's one-on-one and people feel that connection.
Right.
Because these days it's so easy. People think that organizing is send an email. And they'll say, oh, of course, oh, 200 people are showing up at our party because 200 people on Facebook liked it. Well, then, and 2 people show up, but you have to make sure that people really feel that they are wanted. So I think you have to make that investment and get over that either fright. It's a great practice as well, just to start talking to people, because that's also how you hone in your stump speech. And you start saying, looking at what you should emphasize and what you should not emphasize and what you should lead with. So I think there's great value to that.
Melanie, keeping in mind that a lot of our folks are either have never run for office, or as I say, are in local office, but this is the first time they've been partisan. This is the first time that they can't give a good government, we're all in it together answer and say, I share your values as a progressive, and what might they encounter for the first time? What's going to be hard for them? Is it the fact that we have factions within the party? Is it not knowing the party structure? What do you think the big challenges are making that transition?
You know, with that transition, I think it's just a matter of showing that you're now dedicated to the party. And so there's a lot of worth in just showing up. So showing up to your local Dem Club meeting and continuing to show up at all of the events. Besides your county Dem Club meeting, there's a number of chartered clubs within each county central committee. So while, for example, in Sacramento, there's one Democratic Party of Sacramento County, there's, I think, 30 other local clubs, from Fem Dems to Women Democrats, the Progressive Dems, Green Dems, all in Sacramento. So continually showing up and showing that you're now there and dedicated to the party, I think goes a long way. When people start to see you again and again and, oh, Melanie, there you are again. Melanie, there you are again. They will start to see that you are committed to the party and party values.
So a couple of, Elmi.
I just want to add one thing, because there are organizations like, Emerge, Emily's List, who support Democratic women. So find out what those organizations are and introduce yourself, because then you start finding out a little bit of the lay of the land, but also then you're affiliating yourself, or by either joining, attending events with organizations that are helping Democratic women.
I want to just say thank you to our audience. I want a couple comments and questions. We have a question here. Is it possible for you all to have this slide deck? The answer is yes. We post all of our webinars on our website. We have a specific in the navigation bar. You can find the webinars easily. We actually keep an archive of them. So if this is your first time with us, you can go back and find a lot of great information. We have not done one previously on working a convention to success, but there are lots of other topics, and this one will be up, I think, by Wednesday of next week. So the answer to that is yes, and thank you for asking. A couple of quick suggestions that have come in. When you are calling, leave a specific message. We all find it hard to find people if you're meeting them and you have a phone number. Could be a home phone, could be a cell phone, you don't know. But I think most of us don't answer an unknown phone number on our cell phones anymore. And I think that one of the things that you want to do is be practiced in your message leaving, because it's hard to get through the first time. So we want you to be successful. So please remember to do that. Now, I wanted to just say to both of you, there are a lot of things that we think of in our work, all of us, that are different for women. So we haven't looked through a gender lens. at this convention. And yet I think we can expect that largely because of what's happening in Alabama and Missouri this morning and Georgia, we're going to see women really distressed. And these are women who are going to have the power to speak out and do something about what's happening in other states. So two things for you to respond to, please. Is there something different about campaigning at this convention as a woman? And two, is there something specific about the circumstance we find ourselves in that you would want women to address if they are contemplating a race as they meet people at the convention at the end of the month?
The first thing I would think of is that the Women's Caucus meeting is going to be packed.
So
It's hard to get there
earlier.
It's hard to get there, and this year it's going to be at 7:45.
Correct.
But I think when you're distressed, you also want to find out if there are other distressed people and what you can do collectively, because you feel so alone and powerless sometimes, and you think, am I the only one thinking this way? But I think that's one thing to do. And I think we're going to see a lot of focus on women's health, because and this is something that is a good way to bring in a lot of men who also share this, because they have daughters, wives. So I think it's also a good way to find common ground and new allies as we go into this convention.
Yes, definitely. I think that what we've seen at Emerge California over the last few years is we get more and more applicants who haven't traditionally been in the political space. They're not elected staffers, they're not working on policy, they've never worked on a campaign before, but now they apply to Emerge California and they're in the program and they're learning for the first time what it's like to be politically engaged, and I think we're just going to see more and more of that. And so I love this webinar because it is definitely an introduction and preparation for a convention, and I've never seen one done before. Yeah. And I think it's such a great idea to get folks prepared for it so that we can come together and be successful at convention for a lot of new women that are getting mobilized by what's going on across the country and in the White House right now.
One of the things I want to congratulate you on and Emerge California on is that from the beginning, your curriculum has included, may not be from the very first year, but for at least a decade now, you have included a trip to this convention.
From the beginning.
A trip to this convention. Apparently, Elmi is remembering her contribution on this point as one of the founding board members. But this convention is, again, and just want to emphasize before our final questions, I want to emphasize for people, you will not have all of these decision makers, influencers, opinion leaders in one place at your disposal, as you will twice this year, once at the end of May and then again in November. And if you are contemplating a future as a political leader in government service, in public service, this is just an enormously rich opportunity. So please do consider it. So ladies, I want to ask you, you understand that our folks are looking to learn and to create a presence, as you have said, and to begin to build that network of relationships that can form the basis of a candidacy. So for somebody who is coming into this for the first time this weekend, I want to ask each of you, what is success? So when they're on their way home Sunday, what have they accomplished? What would make that a successful weekend?
First of all, I hope that they're motivated to vote and that they get everybody in their community to vote. And whether you're on the spectrum of thinking, you know, I'm going to run, then decide what office you want to run for and what is good for you. Because for a long time, all these people were, I think I'll run for Congress, and they didn't even know how the city council works, or just anybody who thinks they're going to fast track themselves. And that's great. But also remember, there's so many critical local offices. And right now we are looking at an administration that is very hostile to women and people of color. And so we need to be very mindful that it's critical to have people in local office, because those are the people that are also going to continue, but we continue to hold or strengthen our base, because if we only pay attention to federal races, then the other side is putting people in local races. and all of a sudden we're trying to figure out what happened. So I think we have to look at the broad spectrum of what's going on, from voting to making sure that people are running at the local level, the state level, and the federal level, and not concede any position to anybody.
Melanie?
Yes, to piggyback on that, I would say if you go home and you knew that you had challenged yourself to meet someone, grab one business card, speak at a caucus, then that's definitely success. And if you had your plan in front of you going into convention and you checked off one of those marks, I think you've had a successful convention.
So I want to thank and remind you all that the webinar will be up online and our guide is now available online. So check Close the Gap CA and you'll find a wealth of resources. You can re-listen to the parts you love. I want to particularly thank Karen Weinstein and Janet Cook for the time they put in to conceiving this preparation for you for the convention and the guide itself, which is full of lots of great facts and lots of great advice. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, Close the Gap California, we recruit.